The old grandfather clock struck midnight as Detective James Morgan stood in the dimly lit study, examining the scene before him. The room was a mess, papers scattered across the mahogany desk, a broken teacup on the Persian rug, and most notably, the wall safe hanging open and empty. Mrs. Eleanor Thompson, the wealthy widow who owned the Victorian mansion, wrung her hands nervously as she watched the detective work. "It happened sometime between 8 p.m. and midnight," she explained, her voice trembling. "I was at the charity dinner downtown, and when I returned," she gestured helplessly at the chaos. Detective Morgan nodded, his keen eyes taking in every detail. 3 people had access to the house that evening: Sarah Miller, the housekeeper of 15 years, Robert Thompson, Mrs. Thompson's stepson, and Dr. William Hayes, the family physician who occasionally checked on Mrs. Thompson's heart condition. "The safe contained my late husband's most precious possession," Mrs. Thompson continued. "A rare gold pocket watch passed down through generations. It's worth a fortune, but the sentimental value is priceless." Morgan began his interviews with Sarah Miller first. The housekeeper was a small woman with graying hair and calloused hands from years of service. "I left at 7:30 p.m. right after serving Mrs. Thompson's early dinner before her event. Everything was in order then. I have a key, yes, but I would never." She trailed off, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Robert Thompson was next. The young man lounged in an armchair, seemingly unconcerned about the theft. "I dropped by around 9 p.m. to pick up some documents Father left me in his will. The safe was closed then. Why would I steal the watch? I'm already well provided for in the will." Dr. Hayes arrived last, looking tired after being called from his home. "I came by at 8:30 p.m. to drop off Mrs. Thompson's new heart medication. I have a key for medical emergencies." I placed the medicine on her nightstand and left within 10 minutes. As Morgan processed their statements, he noticed several inconsistencies. The broken teacup contained fresh tea stains, yet Mrs. Thompson had left for dinner hours ago. There were muddy footprints near the window, but it hadn't rained in days. Most intriguingly, the safe dial showed signs of expert manipulation rather than forced entry. The detective examined Mrs. Thompson's appointment book and made a few discreet phone calls. As the pieces fell into place, a small smile played across his face. He gathered everyone in the study. "The pocket watch has been found," Morgan announced, causing a stir among those present. "Or rather, it never left this room." He turned to Mrs. Thompson. "Isn't that right, madam?" The widow's composed facade cracked slightly. "Whatever do you mean?" "This was an elaborate staging," Morgan explained. "The charity dinner ended at 10 p.m., not midnight, as you claimed. I confirmed this with the organizers. You had plenty of time to create this scene, scatter papers, break a teacup, and most importantly, hide the watch. But why would I steal my own watch?" Mrs. Thompson demanded. "Insurance fraud," Morgan stated simply. "Your late husband's business investments failed shortly before his death, leaving you in considerable debt. The watch is insured for 5 times its actual value. You plan to claim the insurance money, then quietly sell the watch overseas through your contacts." He walked to the fireplace and pressed the hidden panel in the ornate mantelpiece. A small compartment opened, revealing the gleaming gold watch. The muddy prints by the window were too perfect, made with old dirt. The teacup was broken recently, with fresh tea, yet you'd been gone for hours. Most tellingly, the safe showed signs of professional tampering, yet nothing else of value was taken. Mrs. Thompson's shoulders slumped in defeat. Henry's business failures left me nothing but debts and appearances to maintain. I thought I could solve everything with one clever plan. As the police led Mrs. Thompson away, Detective Morgan carefully logged the watch into evidence. Another case solved, though this one brought him no satisfaction. In his years of detective work, he'd learned that desperation often drove people to crime, and even the most respectable facades could hide desperate souls. Sarah Miller quietly began cleaning up the study. Robert Thompson left to contact his lawyer, and Dr. Hayes offered to provide a statement too.